What time is it? It's nation time.
Greetings and welcome to the Afterwords program. I'm Baba Kafense Chike, your host. I'm joined by Baba and Bayou Chewy, this week's presenter of our sermon. Sermon is titled, "The More Things Change, the More They Stay the Same." Welcome, Baba Chewy. How are you today?
I'm good. Glad to be here. How are you?
I'm fine, just continuing to struggle with this cold weather, but it too will soon pass. This week's scripture is taken from the book of Judges, chapter 21, verse 25, and it reads, "In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes." You opened the sermon by explaining how the use of technology has dumbed us down. Considering that our ancestors seem to accomplish so much more with much less, how do you think we can more effectively use technology in support of our struggle for liberation?
Good question. So first we have to understand it and understand the algorithms and understand how they impact our thinking, our cognitive behavior and responses. Once we can understand it, then we can use it as a tool to our benefit. But until we understand what it's doing to us, how it affects us, how it gets us addicted, we can't break that pattern and really use it effectively.
Can you say a little more about how it negatively impacts us? You do in the sermon.
So, number one, we create these algorithms and it keeps feeding us mostly information that's going to allow us to be mindless consumers, right? It keeps giving us more of the stuff it thinks we like and feeding us opportunities to consume, consume, consume. And until we recognize that and break that pattern, and it's a lot of ways you can do that. Number one, be intentional, be aware of it, be conscious of it, and not click the bait. Clickbait is everywhere on the internet. You don't have to click. That's a choice, but you got to be intentional about that. Another thing you can do is turn off your search history, right? So it doesn't keep feeding you more of the same. And do your own search. Make, what I don't care what you're searching for news, for information, for things you might want to consume, all of that. If you cut off your search history, then it won't keep feeding you. Your algorithm is in your control, right? So take control of your algorithm.
Okay, and what about how do we contend with the misinformation? Because we get all kind of
Yeah.
information and believe
So
things and
you have to do what you would do before the internet, right? You compare different sources. You get information from certain authors. You get information from before we had Wikipedia, we had encyclopedias, we had other sources, resource materials. So you have to gather information from the internet in the same way. You got to compare one source to another source to another. You need at least three or four sources, right? And then from those different sources, you can come to some clear understanding about what factual, what's reality, what's
thank
true.
thank you for that. You also explained uh, that for the past 400 years or so, white supremacy has become normalized. And even if, as we find ourselves where we are today, we see white supremacists saying things like, well, we're going to fight white supremacy. And I'm talking about in some cases, Democratic politicians saying they're anti-white supremacy. But could you say more about the normalization and the systemic nature of white supremacy, particularly as it manifests today?
Well, again, you can't fight something that you don't know is real, right? It's like trying to fight your nose, but you don't, you're so comfortable with your nose being on your face, you don't know how to fight or where to fight. So again, awareness, being aware, right, of all the many ways that racism manifests itself in our institutions, in our laws, in our policies and procedures. It exists in so many ways, in so many places. We kind of take it for granted, and so we don't recognize it. And it's hard to fight an enemy you don't see, that you're not aware of. So I think again the first step is being aware, and then understanding the the system itself, the whole system, right? A lot of times we try to fight a piece of it rather than looking at the whole system. So, for example, we might try to deal with the issue of education and how we are disproportionately underserved, and not realize that the system itself is a system that was designed to educate Europeans and to reinforce a Western worldview.
Yeah.
Okay, so our fight doesn't begin or end with a particular institution within the educational system. It's the whole system itself. It's not our worldview. And if we understand that, then we'll start to address that by reorientating our minds, our psyche to an African worldview. Even the way material is presented to Black folks in educational institutions doesn't resonate with who we are and how we receive and process information. So it has to be addressed, but on a much larger scale than what we give it credit for.
So how would you, what would your response be to those of us that thought maybe the election of Barack Obama or somebody like that was somehow a triumph over white supremacy?
Uh, Putting a Black person in a position of authority does not change the system. That person is really a puppet of the system. And that's all we saw during Barack's 8 years, is him trying to fight an uphill battle. He got a few things done, but most of his efforts were like a fish dead in the water, right? They shot him down without even anything he tried to pass through the Senate. They shot it. They didn't even look at it. They didn't entertain it. And as soon as he got out of office, they started to dismantle everything he put into place. As soon as he got out.
Hmm.
And if you go back to, you remember his first address, his inaugural address, and the guy from South Carolina said, "You lie," in the middle of his presentation.
Dude.
I said he don't have a chance. They don't even want to listen to him.
Along with the fact that the Republicans gathered to commit themselves to making him a one-term
Yeah,
president.
yeah. And they told him that too. You're gonna be one term from the beginning. They told him that. So it was, it was a noble effort.
Another comment in the sermon that stood out to me was your assertion that this is the most important Black History Month. Could you say a little more about that?
Well, I don't like to foresee negativity,
Mhm.
but it's very clear to me that not only are they taking Black history out of schools and banning books and all that, they changing the whole. They're trying to bury. They're trying to rewrite history on so many different levels, and in doing that, there won't be a Black history if we don't wake up and smell the coffee. Because they're doing everything possible to rewrite American history to pretend as if there wasn't anything called slavery, and if there was, it was a happy-go-lucky thing. Black people enjoyed it. It was a great ride. Blah blah. They're rewriting history. So if we don't wake up in this Black History Month and realize that this is our history and we need to tell our own narrative and stop expecting other people to honor and respect who we are and what our experience was and what we went through, we're gonna wake up and it's all gonna be gone.
And this is not the first time after the shortly after Reconstruction and during the Reconstruction period, they began to write a whole new narrative about the
Yes.
war, slavery, the
Yes.
South, and the Confederacy.
Yes.
So we have reference points in history to look at. I'd like to ask you as we come near the close, you tell us that Project 2025 is like the new, I think you call slave codes or the black codes.
Yeah.
How we collectively and effectively as a people fight Project 2025?
The same way we fought the slave codes and the black codes and all those other codes. We had to build our own. That's all. That's the only our only option is self-determination. And until we understand that, that's we're lost. We can't fight if we don't have anything to fight with. And that means building our own institutions, pooling our resources, organizing and understanding the value of our separateness, because we're already separated. Ain't like we have to work on being mobilized. We're already separate. It's just uniting and organizing and building upon that separateness and using our gifts. And we got so many talented, gifted, resourceful people, but we spending it all in their system instead of using it for ourselves.
Mm.
And we got the tools. That's the other thing. We got tools we didn't have 100 years ago, 200 years. We got tools like the internet, like social media, all these mass communications tools that we have, but we have not come up with a plan, right?
Mhm.
An effective plan. Like they have a Project 2025. Where's our Project 2025? Instead of whining and crying about theirs, let's create our own project and then stick to our plan and then work our plan. We're not helpless. We're not hopeless.
Mhm. All right, thank you, Baba Chewy, for a powerful sermon and insightful conversation. I'd like to also thank our viewers and invite the viewers to continue to join us every week for enlightening sermons and engaging conversation and the engaging conversation that follows during our Afterwards programs. Thank you very much. And I'd like to close with the words of our patron saint, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will.
Ashe.
What time is it? It's nation time.